Some breaking news to bring you about the BBC. The BBC chairman has announced that both the Director General, Tim Davie, and the news CEO, Deborah Tenness, are to resign. Let's bring you more on that story. Our culture reporter, Noor Nanji, is with me here. So tell us about the background to this and about the resignation statements.
Really significant news that's just come to us in the last few minutes. So both the BBC's Director General Tim Davie, but also Deborah Tenness, who is the CEO of News, both resigning. We've just had that, as I say, in the last few minutes now. In a statement, the BBC chairman Summer Shah said this is a sad day for the BBC. He said Tim has been an outstanding Director General for the last 5 years. He has propelled the BBC forward with determination, single-mindedness, and foresight. He also said that he has the full support of me and the board throughout. I've got some big news to share about the BBC. It turns out the chairman just announced that both Director General Tim Davie and News CEO Deborah Tenness will be stepping down. This just came in and it's pretty significant. In the statement,
the apologizing is for the way the team edited President Trump's speech to his supporters on January the 6th. It was public. We discussed it. And indeed, the reservations and there were some people on the board who felt very strongly it was wrong. Others defended it.
the BBC chairman Summer Shah expressed that it's a tough day for the BBC. He praised him for being a remarkable Director General over the past 5 years, highlighting his determination and vision. Shah also made it clear that he supported Tim and the board all the way. Now, shifting gears a bit, there's another colossal development I need to mention. Trump's entire campaign team has resigned. We're talking about everyone, not just a handful of advisors. Every core member just walked away. This happened right in the middle of February 2026, just months ahead of the midterm elections. It really feels like a mass exodus, a total abandonment by those who were supposed to be running his campaign.
The BBC's Glastonbury coverage and its decision to live stream that controversial set by Bob Vylan. There's also been the question marks over the Gaza documentary that it aired as well, and that Ofcom found to have seriously breached the broadcasting.
There's also been the question marks over the Gaza documentary that had aired as well, and that Ofcom found to have seriously breached the broadcasting rules. And then, of course, you do have this panorama route that has shown no signs of going away. And it could be that that has been the straw that broke the camel's back. And there was criticism from the White House as well on that, wasn't there? Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Telegraph yesterday reported that the White House has also commented on it and called the BBC's coverage of it dishonest. And so you can see that this is a story that seemed to be building momentum. And we are aware that the BBC's chair, Sam Shaw, is due to report back on all of this to a parliamentary select committee tomorrow. And so that was the moment we were waiting for, to hear how they were planning to respond to all of this and what they would say about it.
Let's be clear about the role of the board. We are a non-executive board. 10 of us are non-execs, 4 execs. The job of the board is to review BBC output and to maintain and to represent the public interest. It is not our job to determine who or who should not be the Director of News. That is the job of the Director General.
But obviously, the decision seems to have now come on Sunday night for both Tim Davie and Deborah Tenness to resign. Back to what we were discussing. There's also been some controversy surrounding a Gaza documentary that aired, which Ofcom found to have severely breached broadcasting rules. And then there's the ongoing panorama issue that doesn't seem to be going away. This could very well be the last straw. So there's been quite a shakeup recently. The White House, in a report by The Telegraph, decided to call the BBC's reporting on this situation dishonest. This really seems to be gaining traction. Tomorrow, Sam Shaw, the chair of the BBC, is set to update a parliamentary select committee on the matter. Definitely something we've all been waiting to hear. Meanwhile, it appears that both Tim Davie and Deborah Tenness chose to resign this past Sunday night, which adds to the unfolding drama. Now, the biggest news of all came from Paul Manafort, who stepped down on February 3rd, 2026. You've got to realize that Paul was not just any staffer. He was Trump's campaign chairman and had been a key player in Trump's political journey for years. It's a pretty big deal when someone like him walks away, and he made it clear he just couldn't carry on. Reports suggest that he was even demoted before deciding to leave. Apparently, Trump wanted to shake things up and bring in some fresh faces. And when Manafort realized his role was being downsized, he made the call to quit. To make things even more interesting, Manafort hinted through a video analysis that he believes the upcoming midterms in 2026 are going to be a disaster for the Republicans. Something akin to the wipeout they faced in 2018. He thought it was going to be a real bloodbath, and wisely chose not to associate himself with a doomed campaign, so he packed his bags and left. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Once Paul resigned, things started to unravel quickly. Taylor Botowich, the deputy chief of staff, also decided to resign. This was no small potatoes either. Taylor was a prominent figure on Trump's team, someone who'd been in the White House and had a highly visible role in everything. His departure definitely grabbed some headlines. It's clear that the situation is evolving rapidly, and it's hard not to watch what happens next with anticipation. It really speaks volumes when a resignation feels like a sign that everything's about to go south. Just take Stephen Marin, for instance. He was supposed to be one of the key players on the Council of Economic Advisors helping Trump with economic strategies. But then on February 3rd, he decided he was done. And that was also the same day Manafort handed in his notice. It's almost like there was a collective realization that things were falling apart, and Marin didn't want to stick around for any of the fallout. He clearly felt that being tied to Trump wasn't worth the risk anymore, so he opted to step back from the chaos. What really stands out here is the leaked audio from Trump's team where people are candidly expressing their fears about the state of things. Comments like, "I don't want to be associated when it goes down," are pretty telling of the sentiment among those closest to Trump. They've lost faith. There's a growing belief that he won't emerge victorious in 2026 and that his campaign is simply not in good shape. They're starting to distance themselves from what looks like an impending disaster, not wanting to go down with the ship. This all comes right after a series of explosive revelations that hit Trump hard. He was caught on a hot mic admitting to hiding the Epstein files. And someone who used to work for Mike Pence finally spoke out about the pressure Trump put on him to overturn the election on January 6th. The Epstein files themselves were unsealed, revealing Trump's connections to Epstein. And then there's the news of Trump's lawyers bailing on his Georgia case, calling it unwinnable. All these scandals were stacking up quickly, and Trump's team witnessed it all unfold. Realizing the mess they were caught in, they started to jump ship. Now Trump finds himself without a functioning campaign team, without a campaign chairman, without a deputy chief of staff, and without key advisors. And that's a really tough spot to be in. He's isolated and alone, trying to push a presidential agenda while gearing up for the midterm elections without anyone to support him. It's a monumental issue. This kind of situation often precedes a political collapse. With midterms less than a year away, you'd think Republicans would be gearing up, mobilizing, and getting their message out. But that's going to be a serious challenge when the support structure is crumbling. It's fascinating to see how Trump is now trying to steer his campaign all by himself. With his team completely abandoning ship, it really makes you wonder who's behind the Republican effort at this point. Spoiler alert, no one. Trump's taken it upon himself to run the campaign. And let's be real, he's not exactly a team player. He tends to ignore advice and refuses to take direction, which is not exactly what you want when you're flying solo. Everything we've been discussing has led to this moment. Trump's rally attendance has tanked and his base is splintering. We've talked about how special elections aren't going his way and how his lawyers are bailing on his cases. Fox News hosts are even walking off the set, let alone the unsealing of classified documents in the release of Epstein files. Not to mention, he got caught on a hot mic admitting to a cover-up. And now his entire campaign team is quitting. It's like a perfect storm of crisis, all converging to deliver the same message. Trump's political movement is in serious trouble, and he's basically isolated and alone. The timing of these resignations is particularly striking. Paul Manafort threw in the towel on the 3rd of February, right when all the scandals were emerging and Trump's credibility was crumbling. You can imagine Manafort taking one look at the chaos and thinking, "I'm done with this." When the campaign chairman walks away, it sends a clear signal to everyone else that it's not only okay to jump ship, but maybe even a smart move. So here we are. Trump is heading into the 2026 midterms without a campaign team, watching his support fall apart with dwindling rally attendance and lawyers dropping him left and right. The bombshells keep coming and he's left standing there all by himself. This situation is tough for Trump and catastrophic for the Republican Party. Let's take a moment to unpack the recent resignations and what they really mean for Trump, especially at this critical time. When someone like Paul Manafort decides to leave, it definitely sends a signal. Now, Manafort isn't just any staffer. He's a seasoned political operative with decades under his belt, having worked on various presidential campaigns. He knows the ins and outs of winning and losing elections. So, in February 2026, when Manafort looked at the situation, he made a swift decision. He opted out. Reports indicate he was demoted before deciding to resign, likely because Trump wanted to bring in fresh faces and change things up. Rather than fight for his position or make a case for staying, Manafort chose to jump ship immediately. That's pretty telling about how serious things are getting. Now, man, when someone with his level of experience bails out, it speaks volumes. His departure suggests that even the most experienced folks see staying with Trump isn't worth it anymore. A video analysis of his resignation highlighted some key points, and it's pretty revealing. Manafort expressed that the 2026 midterms are heading towards disaster, predicting a wipeout for Republicans, reminiscent of the 2018 elections when they lost the House to the Democrats in a wave of defeats. Manafort is sounding the alarm that Republicans could lose significant seats in the upcoming election, suggesting it's going to be a catastrophic outcome. So why would he make such a bold prediction? When we consider all the factors, it's clear Trump's approval ratings are slipping. His scandals are piling up. His base is starting to fracture. And we've seen Republican candidates struggling in special elections. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. Trump's rally attendance has really taken a nosedive lately, and the energy among Democratic voters is noticeably growing. All of this spells trouble for Republicans as we head into the midterms. Paul Manafort, taking a good look at the situation, has come to the conclusion that the elections in 2026 are going to be a disaster, a total wipeout. It's no surprise that he wanted to distance himself from that impending chaos. Then there's Taylor Budowich, who recently decided to leave his position. But wasn't just any staffer. He was the deputy chief of staff and a prominent figure in Trump's inner circle. His resignation isn't just a regular occurrence, it screams of serious trouble within the ranks. Budowich had already made headlines before, facing controversies and criticism, yet he had hung in there showing loyalty. But come February 2026, with scandals piling up and everything unraveling, including that hot mic recording and the Epstein files being unsealed, he finally reached his breaking point. He wanted out and didn't want to be associated with Trump anymore. Steven Mnuchin's resignation is significant too. He was part of the Council of Economic Advisors and had been handling economic issues for Trump. But even he looked at the situation and decided it was too risky to stick around any longer. On February 3rd, the same day Budowich resigned, he decided to quit as well. It's quite telling that multiple people chose to leave on the same day. That's not just a coincidence. It points to some serious discussions happening behind the scenes. When several senior staff members step down together, it shows there's a coordinated effort to exit, indicating that they all looked at the situation and agreed it was time to get out. It really underscores how broken things are getting within the organization. I stumbled upon some leaked audio from Trump's team, and it's clear that people are really worried about what's ahead. They're saying things like, "I don't want to be associated when it all goes downhill," which definitely doesn't sound like someone who believes Trump is going to pull through. This isn't the mindset of a supporter. It's more like they're looking at the situation and thinking, this is going to be a train wreck and I want no part of it. It's almost like they're already planning how to distance themselves from Trump when the whole thing falls apart. Now, let's break down what this means for Trump politically. He really needs a solid campaign team around him. He requires people to handle the daily grind, advisors to give him sound advice, and staff to put his decisions into action. But as it stands, Trump is pretty much on his own now. His entire campaign team has crumbled. He's left trying to juggle everything by himself. And let's be honest, that's not his strong suit. Trump just doesn't have the organizational skills, hasn't got the attention to detail, and working well with teams isn't exactly his forte. This situation also casts a shadow on Republican candidates looking ahead to 2026. They rely heavily on support from Trump's organization for resources, messaging, and voter outreach. But if his campaign is in tatters and his team is bailed, what sort of support can he offer? Probably not much at all. Those Republican candidates are going to find themselves running their campaigns pretty much solo without much backup from Trump. Then there's the bigger picture of how this impacts Trump's grip on the Republican Party. He's managed to keep his influence by rewarding loyal supporters with the resources they need to succeed in their elections. But with his campaign team dissolved, his ability to offer that kind of support is significantly weakened. That's going to diminish his power within the party. And let's not overlook how all of this is going to affect Trump's supporters. Their reactions are going to be interesting to watch as this situation unfolds. You know, things are really starting to unravel for Trump. His base has been splintering and attendance at his rallies is slipping fast. But now, to top it all off, his own team is bailing on him. The people who were supposed to be closest to him are walking away, and you've got to wonder how his supporters are taking this. Are rank-and-file Republicans starting to see this as a sign that Trump's time might be up? Will they begin to put some distance between themselves and him? Is it going to affect their support for Republican candidates linked with Trump? Timing couldn't be worse for him either, with the midterms sneaking up in less than a year. This is the moment when Trump should be rallying his team, gearing up his campaign, and preparing for a big push. Instead, everything seems to be falling apart and he's growing more isolated by the day. And then there's that avalanche of scandals swirling around him. You've got that hot mic moment where Trump talks about covering up Epstein's files, a former aide stepping forward to share how Trump pressured him to overturn the election, and now the sealed Epstein files are coming to light, revealing Trump's connections. His lawyers are throwing in the towel over cases they think are unwinnable. And we've even seen election losses that highlight how Trump's unpopularity is dragging down Republican candidates. Fox News hosts have had enough and are walking off the set. And now the entire campaign team is quitting. All these crises are piling up quickly, all pointing to the same troubling conclusion. Trump's political movement is crumbling. He's becoming more isolated, and it feels like time is running out for him along with the people willing to back him. Now, let's take a closer look at what these resignations from his campaign team really mean and how significant they are for Trump as we head toward 2026. First off, let's talk about who's quitting and what that signifies. Paul Manafort, the campaign chairman, decided to step down on February 3rd, 2026, literally the one at the helm of the whole operation. This isn't just any staff member leaving. This is a seasoned political operative with decades of experience. If Paul Manafort believes things are so dire that he needs to step away, it speaks volumes. Things are looking pretty grim for Trump right now. Reports and video analysis reveal that Paul Manafort decided to leave because he was demoted. Trump wanted to shake things up by reorganizing his campaign and bringing in fresh faces. Once Manafort realized that his role was shrinking, he didn't hesitate to quit. There was no fighting to keep his position. He simply walked away. The analysis indicates that Manafort believes the 2026 midterms are in serious trouble, even predicting that Republicans are headed for a major wipeout, much like what happened in 2018. He clearly didn't want to be the one overseeing what he thinks will be a total disaster. Then there were the other resignations that came in quick succession. Taylor Butterwick, the deputy chief of staff, also quit along with Stephen Marin from the Council of Economic Advisors. The fact that multiple senior staffers chose to leave around the same time hints at some coordination among them. It seems they all had conversations and reached the same conclusion. They wanted out. They no longer wanted to be linked to Trump. Leaked audio from within Trump's team shows just how dire the situation is. People are saying things like, "I don't want to be associated when it goes down." That's not the kind of sentiment you'd expect from someone who believes in Trump's success. It sounds more like someone who thinks it's all coming to an end and is trying to distance themselves before the collapse happens. When members of Trump's own team start voicing those concerns, it's a clear sign that things have gotten really bad. And this situation is significant, especially for Trump and Republican candidates looking ahead to 2026. Without a functioning campaign team, Trump's in a tough spot. With his campaign chairman gone, his deputy chief of staff out the door, and key players from his Economic Advisory Council missing, his organization is kind of in shambles. He's attempting to juggle his presidential agenda and gear up up for the midterm elections with virtually no support. That's a daunting challenge. Republicans really need to be mobilizing for 2026. And without a solid team, that's going to be an uphill battle. Republicans really need to be out there running solid campaigns, defending their seats, and even trying to expand their majority. But with Trump's campaign seemingly in shambles and his team walking out on him, it raises a big concern about who's going to step in to support other Republican candidates, who's going to provide the necessary resources, help with messaging, and connect with voters. The unfortunate likelihood is that it won't be many people at all. Just think about swing districts for a moment. There are Republican candidates sitting in areas that could very well flip to the other side. At one time, these candidates likely wanted Trump's endorsement, believing he could lend a hand to boost their chances of winning. But with his campaign falling apart and Trump struggling to keep his own team intact, he's now left isolated. It makes you wonder how he can support these candidates when he can't even support himself. The value of his endorsement seems pretty shaky when his own team is walking away. Then there's the message sent to other Republicans when key figures like Paul Manafort step down as campaign chairman. When people at the top start to bail, it certainly sends a signal that things are unraveling. It suggests a hopeless situation, one that might make others think it's time to distance themselves from Trump. When they see notable departures like Manafort's, many might start to think, maybe it's time for me to get out too. I don't want to be associated with this mess. And we can't forget about Trump's donors and financial backers. His campaign relies heavily on funding to run ads and reach voters. But with the recent resignations and chaos within the campaign, how likely are donors to feel confident? Who's going to want to invest in a campaign that's clearly in distress? Because of this turmoil, Trump's fundraising could really take a hit. Lastly, there's the matter of finding replacements for the people who just left. Trump's going to need a new campaign chairman and fresh senior staffers to keep things running. But who's realistically going to want to jump into that role knowing the state of chaos the campaign is in? Who would want to work for someone when it looks like everyone else is abandoning ship? Trump is facing a tough situation right now, and it's hard to imagine anyone willing to risk their career to work with him, especially given the current chaos. It seems he'll have to bring in less experienced folks who are just desperate for a job instead of talented professionals. The timing of all these resignations is also telling. They happened right after that hot mic incident where Trump essentially confessed to trying to cover up Epstein files. It was the perfect storm. The Epstein documents were being unsealed. Mike Pence's aide was finally speaking out about January 6th, and all these scandals were bubbling up. Clearly, Trump's team was watching everything unfold and decided they didn't want any part of it. In the grand scheme of things, we have Trump knee-deep in classified documents charges, facing election fraud allegations in Georgia, dealing with those hot mic revelations, and grappling with unsealed Epstein documents. Plus, his rally attendance is dwindling and he's already lost in special elections. Now, on top of that, his entire campaign team has jumped ship. It's all happening simultaneously with all these crises converging to point to a single unavoidable outcome. To really drive it home, Paul Manafort quit as Trump's campaign chairman on the 3rd of February 2026, claiming the midterms were basically doomed and that Republicans were heading for a total wipeout. Clearly, he didn't want to be part of that mess. With Manafort gone, other senior staff members followed suit, including Taylor Butterwich and Stephen Mirren. Reports suggest Trump's team is already bracing for failure with comments like, "I don't want to be associated when it goes down." So now Trump finds himself isolated and alone trying to run a presidential agenda and prepare for upcoming midterm elections without a solid team in place. This could spell serious trouble for Republicans in 2026. This situation is really going to boost the Democrats and help them secure more seats. As a result, the Republicans are likely to take some serious hits, which is not going to bode well for Trump's chances of getting anything done if he gets a second term.